The next gold and silver boom may be at hand very soon if it's not started already, thanks to the big, beautiful bill. Let's talk about it as we explore. Freshly signed into law on July the 4th, we very well could see a greater movement to gold and silver based off of some provisions in this big, beautiful bill. Well, there's a lot of criticism of the bill as well. We're going to go over some of that, referencing an article from the Silver Academy, which is a little bit disjointed as to how they write this. You would think a Democrat wrote this article. But nonetheless, we're going to go through parts of it anyways and discuss a little bit what's going on, because spending is still going to be out of control. And that is one thing for sure that most everybody can agree on, at least in the short term. There are supposed some spending reductions, but I think you have to do some creative math on that. But nonetheless, the Federal Reserve note is still being printed, and it will still be spent by government officials and by politicians, codified now into law, and that is going to bode well for gold and silver. Now, there's another provision in it as well we're going to get into in a moment, but first, I want to thank Summit Metals for sponsoring the channel. Check them out over at summitmetals.com. So let's see what they're saying here. We've got there's the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. It's not merely a tax and spending package. It's a catastrophic assault on American workers, democracy, and the very fabric of the nation. Of course, we don't have a democracy in this country. We have a representative republic. And essentially, that's what happened. That's why the Big Beautiful Bill got passed, because we have a very big country, and the fabric of the country from one congressional district to the next can be very different. And that is part of the reason why there's been a lot of compromise and a lot of little things put in the bill that many of us, including myself, do not like. But that's just sadly the way it is. We're going to get some good things out of it, but we're going to get some bad things out of it too. And, we can be critical, and it is a good idea to be critical. I'm very critical of congressional spending, but we allow it by electing these politicians that do this. Nonetheless, something's going to give and something's going to have to stop at some point or another. One thing that's constant is gold and silver. But while its architect claims it will help families, a closer look reveals a grotesque transfer of wealth and power to the ultra-rich, a turbocharged surveillance state, in a deliberate effort to cement America's decline as a world's economic and moral leader. So there it is. Again, it sounds like a Democrat wrote this. First and foremost, the bill cements the 2017 tax cuts, ensuring that the top 0.1% already drowning in wealth receive the lion's share of benefits. The estate tax exemption jumps to $15 million per person, letting billionaires pass on dynastic fortune tax-frees, while the bottom 80% see crumbs or nothing at all. Now, that's where I'm not sure exactly what this estate tax, because that essentially is a death tax. And what I understand, the provision of the bill, it's gone away for anybody and everybody. And that's what one reason to hold gold and silver, so that you're not taxed on it when you transfer it to your offspring. Of course, you give it to them or just hand it to them. What are they going to know about it? You hand the physical gold and silver bullion coins over, but if you have them in a vault somewhere or in ETF form or what have you, well, that's where you can run into some taxation, estate tax. So that's the things you have to look at there. Now, there's other parts of this article that are right. They go into the minutia about the deductions for tips and overtime with caps and the sunset after 2028 and the like. But there's other things as well that they talk about with this bill. Reckless injection of trillions more into the economy is a recipe for runaway inflation. Rising labor costs driven by shortages are inflationary, but instead of investing in training or support, the bill throws money to the top, further fueling asset bubbles, while adding $5 trillion to the national debt with no plan for productive investment as a time bomb. Of course, the backers of the bill, including Secretary Scott Bessent, said it is going to be the growth that will lead to the paying down of the debt, and the tariffs are going to help. So we're going to see the debt to GDP will come back in line because of the growth of the economy, because of the tax cuts. Of course, the extension of the tax cuts is literally just that. There's no new tax cuts. There's no stimulus in that regard. It's just the status quo. None of us that are in those scales are going to see any more money in our pocket. So that means that it's business as usual. So I don't see how the economy is going to necessarily improve with this big, beautiful bill if we're not going to see more tax cuts, at least to any large extent. I guess if you cut regulation, that is one way to be able to do it. But I think, in a sense, they should have lowered our taxes even more. I pay a lot in taxes, folks, and I'm sure you do too. And it's crazy. But nonetheless, I do sort of agree with some of those provisions here in the criticism of it. But nonetheless, the estate tax and what they're saying here about what could be happening with setting up a case in a situation where there very well could be setting the framework already on top of the Fed Now system that's already been set up by the Fed for a central bank digital currency. Now, Donald Trump said under his presidency there would not be a central bank digital currency, but even if Kamala Harris was elected, there would not be a central bank digital currency. But nonetheless, there would have been a faster pace of development towards it. And this bill may have something in it for it. I've not read the bill, but it's over 900 pages, and I'm trying to find the provision in this article where it talks about that. The bill also lays the groundwork for central bank digital currency, enabling unprecedented financial surveillance and control. Protesters and dissenters are now at risk of being targeted with ICE and Palantir-style show-us-your-paper tactics reminiscent of the darkest chapters of history. This is not conservatism, it's the merger of the deep state with the most sinister corporate interest. The bill weaponizes the state against its own people, criminalizing protest and dissent, and turning America into a surveillance dystopia. Now, if that's true, then that is really troubling, and I hope that's not the case. But according to some of the predictions that the article makes here about gold and silver, it makes you wonder if that really is true. But let's say it is. Potential there might be language that could allude to that, and that's troubling. Now, we do know that the BRICS have announced a new investment fund managed by China's new development bank to rival the World Bank and the IMF. That fund will use existing resources to guarantee investments in the global south, reducing reliance on Western-denominated institutions and accelerating the shift to a multipolar world. China, Russia, Iran, and a growing bloc of countries are building their own financial, technological, and logical systems. The U.S. Bombs to back the dollar. China builds railways, ports, and alliances. In a split second, the world can change just as electricity replaced kerosene lanterns and global order is shifting. And so while the U.S. clings to outdated tools of coercion, the rest of the world is building alternatives. The big, beautiful bill is not just bad policy, it's a symptom of a nation in denial, accelerating its own irrelevance. And so we'll see. I think there's some good provisions in the bill, such as border protection, the big golden dome, and there's other aspects of it that, if implemented correctly, would be good. But nonetheless, I think there's some provisions in it that are worthy of criticism, no doubt about that. So, when we think about gold and silver, though, they're immune from all of it. They will maintain their standing in the world. And I think that this bill, and if it does increase the debt, and likely it will, at least in the short term, that is a huge problem, folks, because by then it may be too late, especially if there's language in there that alludes to the formation or creating the environment for a central bank digital currency. That's not good either. And the AI stuff in there as well is troubling. So we'll see how this plays out. But when you think about where the price of gold is now compared to where it was, here it is, 2025. You've got gold resting, around $3,300 an ounce. And think about where it was back in 2010. And it's crazy. Or 2020, even. Almost half the price until the big spike up in August of that year. And then you look at where gold was back here when it was used actually as money. Yes, indeed, that's right. Gold was $5 for less than a quarter ounce. That's right, $5 for less than a quarter ounce, and it was $20 for a little less than an ounce. Why? Because it was money. It actually circulated as currency back then. And so that is the difference that we find here with gold and silver. And of course, it's a shame that it's taxed whenever you go to buy it. In some states, it should not be, especially for U.S. Mint produced stuff with denominations on them, gold and silver. And then you've got the things like this that in the United Kingdom, well, aside from the Britannia, and gold and silver is taxed at a 20% rate. Well, silver is, gold is not. And to me, it's immoral, because for many thousands of years, silver and gold has been money and circulated as money. So the big beautiful bill certainly could spark a revolution of sound money, and in a sense it already is and has been with states around the country, as I've reported on this channel. But also it will probably cause the price of gold and silver to go up as inflation it remains sticky with us, because of the policies that will require the Fed to print more money, because politicians want to add more money and keep the debt ceiling up and raise the debt ceiling. No limit. It's crazy. But that's the world we live in, and it's a world we live in because we elect the politicians who are okay with it, because nobody wants to see their programs cut. And that's really a shame. We can't afford to do it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.